How's everyone doing today? I gotta apologize for the lack of content. Um, I'm having some side effects, I guess, from my hearing surgery. And unfortunately, I'm dealing with extreme vertigo and pretty severe tinnitus-like conditions. That's where, sort of like your ears are always ringing. Only in my case, I'm constantly hearing boom, 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 which is my heartbeat. I hear it all the time. So I got to see an ear, nose, and throat doctor again because the guy that did my surgery, he's been deployed. So I'm kind of just waiting. I got it like in a week or so, but like for the last month, I've just been miserable. I can't really even drive a car right now or stand up for longer than for like 15 minutes without getting really dizzy and nauseous. So try to get that fixed. I felt bad because I know my son's disappointed and my wife's not happy, but even if I can't get it fixed, it's still worth getting the surgery. On the positive, this could be something as simple as my allergies, because my sinuses are all kind of misshapen from getting blown up. So maybe it's like my inner ears aren't draining right, but that's why I got to see another ENT. So fingers crossed. But I know I'm late on this, but I just haven't been able to kind of do anything for a while. It's gotten come up to a pretty bad head. So while the wife and the son are at church, my wife's not making me go anywhere. But I'm trying to do a little bit of laundry for her and trying to clean up the house. And I'm just taking a break from all that because I kind of had to sit down. And I don't want anyone feeling sorry for me. I just, it's something I guess just get through. But I saw that Patrick was on the NBC Nightly News, and it was kind of funny actually because I was trying to cook dinner for my wife and my son because I'm kind of working from home right now. I'm just answering trouble calls while effectively laying in bed or reclining on my couch in my office. It's really weird. This is the longest that I haven't been on the road in so long. I'm starting to panic if this is what retirement's going to be like. But I saw a lot of hubbub on Twitter that Patrick was going to be on NBC, so I told my son to turn on the TV to our NBC affiliate, which everybody was kind of surprised because we really don't watch TV in my house, especially around dinner time. I was like, no, just turn it on. And it was right when the news broadcast was starting, and you know how they kind of do the promo of what's going to come on the air, or what stories are going to cover. Sorry, I'm also chewing gum. I realize it's rude. I'm literally trying to pop my ears. I'm trying to do anything to make this god awful pounding stop. But as soon as I saw Patrick, like in the little tiny blurb before they started a story, I started chuckling. And then my son started waving at me, and he pointed to Mom, to get my attention. And of course, Mom's like, "What are you laughing about?" And I was like, "Oh, well, a little while back when we were at the pool, and you got mad at me because I was like screwing around on my phone." She goes, "Yeah." And I was like, "And you remember I showed you the Twitter thread of that crazy guy who was harassing that woman?" She goes, "Yes." I was like, "That's the guy." And my wife just blurts out, "So they arrested him?" And I said, "I don't think they arrested him. We'll have to see." I hope Patrick, though, is appreciating what Elon Musk has done for him, because I guess since Elon Musk isn't paying for server space or whatever anymore, they've had to lock down Twitter pretty good. So I can no longer use incognito mode or whatever to actually look at his tweets. And I just don't give enough of a shit about Patrick to make a separate Twitter account. But we ended up watching this, and I didn't catch all of it because we didn't have the subtitles on. And a lot of times they'll have people talking where they're not actually showing their lips, so that's a little frustrating. So I figured I'd watch it again, this time with the captioning on. And you're not going to hear the audio. Welcome to my world, bitches. No, I'm kidding. But I think at one point after I got done watching it, my wife and I were talking about it. I finally said to my son, I was like, son, do you know why me and your mother monitor your internet access? He goes, because there's bad people out there. I was like, right. But I also don't want you to turn into that man. I mean, me and my wife didn't fill my son in on everything, but yeah, it was a pretty interesting conversation. Pulling resources away from real emergencies. Yep, that is a real problem with swatting. So I love how he's still doing this whole thing where it's all about this one tweet he made, and it's so incredibly silly to me. It's so incredibly silly to me because people all the time, well, that's not even a controversial hot take, really. What that is just that's just your standard Twitter hot take. And if you just didn't keep reacting to it, it wouldn't have escalated this far. I will say this: I think the people that are swatting Pat deserve federal prison. Um, I'll fully admit that when I see on Twitter like some of the text messages that the trolls are sending Pat, I think that's far beyond anything that I would tolerate. But then at the same time, he takes the time to type out a long message on Twitter or on his text messages over and over again. It's so bizarre. Yeah, it's Norm Macdonald's fault. Swatting him and his wife, Nikki. Yeah, again, I don't think they should have to do that. They didn't really do him any favors with his lighting and makeup. Real quick, whenever you're interviewed for something like this, they're going to have lighting. Like his house is probably not normally that well lit, even during the daytime. Like my house is kind of the same way. And you got to wear makeup. If you don't wear makeup, you're going to look like warmed over hot death kind of thing. This is why whenever there's like a person on the street that they're interviewing, that person looks crazy or whatever. It's really because the lighting, the natural lighting, isn't very conducive for 4K video capture. And I don't know, they could have done a better job on the makeup on him. He also looks really rough. This has to be playing a toll on him, like mentally and physically. I do feel bad for Patrick. I want to be absolutely clear on that. I feel bad for Patrick, but it's the same way I kind of feel bad for somebody that runs into traffic and gets hit by a car. I feel bad that happened. At the same time, don't run into traffic. And in Patrick's case, he's trying to cross a 8-lane highway. Like, nobody should have to deal with this. The swatters are just scumbags. I've been spotted 42 times now. Notice what just happened there. Patrick said his house has been swatted 42 times, and the reporter was very careful to not say, yes, your house has been swatted 42 times, or even repeat what Patrick said. He said the police have come to your house in some way, shape, or form 42 times. NBC has to be very careful with this, mainly because I am of the opinion that Patrick is getting swatted. I'm also of the opinion that he is absolutely not the one doing the swatting. I think anyone that believes that, you're crazy. However, I think Patrick does three absolutely boneheaded things. One, he doesn't do anything at all to protect his information or try to privatize his personal information. Two, he practically celebrates every single time he has an interaction with the police as a result of trolling. He basically gives the trolls what they want. He gives them a very public and pronounced reaction. And then 3, my head is pounding so badly, I completely forgot what my third point was going to be. Trolls. God, this fucking movie. Sorry, excuse me. He's doing this all wrong. Oh, and he's overstating. I think he's calling everything a flippin' SWAT. He's calling everything a SWAT, which doesn't serve his case very well, because then he ends up sounding like the boy who cried wolf. And again, I believe Patrick is a victim. When it comes to the swatting, Patrick is a victim. Nobody should be swatted. I don't think that's a controversial position whatsoever. And like, this is a massive waste of resources and stuff. It's crazy. 9 universities. This is the insane thing. If I had some nutter that was like, I have to do this all the time, as just a cell phone owner. I block phone numbers constantly. I don't know anyone at this point who's, unless they're like an elderly retiree, who answers a phone that they don't recognize the number. It's insane. It's absolutely insane. I get so many spam phone calls, it's unreal. And do I argue with the person? Do I call them a stalker child and enjoy prison? No. I simply block the number and I move on, which I think any rational person would do. For whatever reason, he likes to keep this stuff. Wait, hold on. I think I missed something, because I'm talking. Alright, never mind. Constantly harassed. Yeah, they texted us during the interview. Yeah, voice synthesizers and stuff. Yeah, because they're not stupid. Maybe you get a real job again and you learn how to trade in prison. Patrick does need to get a job. See, this is where, like, police departments are kind of screwed with dealing with this. And because it's both a local and it's an international issue, because anybody can SWAT anybody from across the globe if they know what they're doing. And the police departments absolutely have a responsibility to at least react in some way to every call, because if they don't, they're going to get the shit suit out of them. That's absolutely true. They have a responsibility. And yeah, it's extremely dangerous. That's important. That's what, it's so funny. Like, I remember talking to my father once. And somehow my dad, I don't remember the name of the serial killer, but somehow my dad knew a kid that he grew up with, who he was big friends with, who was killed by a serial killer in Baltimore. And his parents reported that their son was... No, the serial killer, I think, was in Pennsylvania. And they reported that their son was missing, and the local police were just like, yeah, he's a runaway, or yeah, he's just hitchhiking, or whatever. Like, cops did not share information whatsoever between different jurisdictions at all. Which is why, like, if you read back in, like, the 60s and the 70s and even the early 80s, it was kind of unreal, like, these serial killers that could rack up these crazy numbers, because if your kid just went missing, well, there was no database whatsoever to collect information and try to get information out of the public about a missing child. So they got to do something like this. But I've also seen, I think it was like a Washington Post article that was written up about Patrick, and he looks like he's never drank a glass of water before. You couldn't clean up your kitchen a little bit. I don't know. It's not like NBC, I think, just showed up. I do feel bad for him. Policies, procedures, and training around it. People have died. Yeah, exactly. It's a waste, and so on. Let me try to find that. That's what this was. I remember reading this article, and I was a little bit like perturbed by some of the things that I saw in here. I love this. Mary Ann Franks is a professor of law at Miami. The majority of the court can't even imagine what stalking is like. They have to have 24/7 security around them. Like, are you kidding me? They were having protests in the front yards of members of the Supreme Court. What is this person even trying to say? Like, absolutely, members of the Supreme Court know what stalking is like. Now, basically, this whole thing was like this nutter, this guy who's like clearly insane, was sending threatening messages over Facebook to this woman, and this woman's obviously a victim, absolutely a victim. But the Supreme Court basically said you cannot just arrest somebody for making threats unless you have like a realistic, like you can't arrest me for messaging somebody who's being an asshole to be like, oh, eat a dick, choke on it, and be like, oh, he just told me to eat a penis and then to choke on it. Clearly, that's an actionable threat, kind of thing. Like. The other thing, I wonder if Patrick realizes this, because Patrick's always railing against the conservative members of the Supreme Court. And it was the two most conservative members, pretty much the two most conservative members, Justice Thomas and, I forget her name, the blonde woman, who were on the side of saying that this guy should remain locked up. It was like a 7-2 decision. Like, they basically said that you have to show, the government has to show that there's more to it than just, you can't just lock people. It's very, very important. You cannot just lock people up for things. Again, it always goes back to that Norm Macdonald tweet, which I could have sworn Patrick at one point said that prior to all this with O&A, that he was being stalked by members of the NRA because he's a quote-unquote political firebrand on Twitter. I don't know about anyone else, but I remember seeing a tweet like that. Oh, Dan, what's his name? The O&A guy, Dan. They're talking about Dan's live stream. Like many victims, filed a lawsuit against the owner of the forums he accused of driving harassment, and he lost, and now owes tens of thousands of dollars in legal fees. Which is funny because Pat is constantly saying on Twitter that he doesn't owe anyone money. So I guess he does owe money. And like, you know, on one hand you're like, what kind of shyster lawyer convinced Patrick to do this? That lawyer's probably an idiot. Or I should say idiot, that lawyer intentionally ripped Pat off. And at the end of the day, if you have the money and you won't take no for an answer, a lawyer will sue a ham sandwich. Just because you're getting sued doesn't mean that the case has any kind of merit. And like what Patrick was legitimately trying to do, if somebody like Patrick was able to do that, the internet as we know it just dies. Because then you wouldn't have message boards at all anymore, because websites just wouldn't be worth it. It brought me to the conclusion that non-digital natives simply do not understand this environment. What the hell is Patrick talking about here? I guess Patrick is trying to say that since he grew up on the internet, he knows the internet better than the Supreme Court justices. I would respond with that. Patrick doesn't know how to protect his own identity. So nobody should take any advice from Patrick on how to do any of this. They should not be making rulings that are going to be setting precedent about how the internet will be regulated in policies for decades. Patrick, you dummy. It is not the Supreme Court that sets regulations and policies. That would be the U.S. legislature. The Supreme Court merely states whether or not, they rule whether or not that legislation could be legal if there is a challenge to it. Like, what Patrick is basically demanding the right to be able to do to someone would immediately hit him right smack in the face, because he tweets out stuff all the time that could be threatening. The crap that Patrick threw Leslie's way in itself the way he sees the world would get him put into jail, because he was threatening her job, she was threatening he was threatening, it was either him or Shane Noakes, but they were all piling up on her, like threatening her mother's memorial website. Like, Patrick, if you want to have stronger laws against trolls, just FYI, it's not going to. There's no way they're going to be able to write this to where all trolling behavior you don't like is illegal, but your trolling behavior is going to be kosher, because it's impossible to write a law like that. It's not an option, just not exist online, he said, adding that there's really no meaningful distinction between one's online presence and real life. Anyone who thinks that distinction exists is ... divorced from the experience of hundreds of billions of people. That is the dumbest thing I've ever read. That is the dumbest thing I've ever read. I don't connect the shit I do online with my personal life, really, and I certainly don't connect it to my professional life. I go to a lot of trouble to make sure that my identity, my privacy is kept private. I don't have a public Facebook account. I don't link anything with my Twitter to, like, fundamentally anything really with my real life. I might mention my health every once in a while, or I might mention that, like, I'm in like a certain place for work, but I don't talk about the nature of my work or anything like that. Patrick literally tweets, not only he will tweet out his meals, if he does even a modicum of housework, he's got to tweet that out. He's got to show the whole world. I've probably seen more pictures from Patrick on the inside of his house in his backyard than on, like, unintentionally, mind you, than anybody's home on earth. It's unreal. It's unreal the amount of information that he shares that he doesn't need to share. He acts like he needs to have this active, engaging Twitter account to be able to sell books. And it's like, well, no. What you need to do is you need to write. And for all intents and purposes, it looks like you're not writing, and you're actually going out of your way to ensure that you're blacklisted from the literary community by attacking literary agents. Most people don't have to put everything online. Like, this is insane. And on top of this, most people, if they do get engaged with a troll, block and move on. They just block and move on. I really have to wonder if Patrick thinks that he is the only person that has ever been trolled online, or that he's the only person that's ever dealt with a stalker in real life. Like, golly. I don't know how you would... The only way I could ever see Patrick getting fixed, and what I mean is like living a healthier, more functional life, is by him going to behavioral therapists. Like, you have to have an intervention with this guy where it's like you have to get online. Absolutely has to get online. It is utterly insane that he thinks that he has to tweet out every moment of his life, because he knows he's going to be effed with. This is why celebrities don't operate their own Twitter account. Like every celebrity that you know of, I guarantee you, does not operate their Twitter account. They have a PR person that does this, a PR person that they can trust, and more importantly, a PR person that if they really F up, they can publicly fire. Because nobody needs to hear shit all the time from like crazy people online. And Patrick's got a lot of crazy people that are fucking with him. But it's just like, Patrick would practically need one of those people that specializes in like kidnapping cult members and trying to deprogram them from a Motel 6 or whatever. I can just picture him taped to a chair and a guy is just screaming at him, "Get a job! You're not funny! These tweets are not witty! Get a job! You owe money!" And it's just not taking. Like, I think I'm very clear. I don't feel that Patrick should be getting swatted, and I feel that him and his wife were a victim. I really don't understand Nikki at all. I get this feeling that Patrick, that this relationship between him and Nikki seems, at least from the outside, seems incredibly one-sided. Because like if Patrick was doing laundry, he'd be tweeting out pictures every day of him doing laundry. If he cooked, he'd be tweeting pictures of that. If he cleaned, he'd be tweeting pictures of that. He seemingly tweets about politics nonstop with a childlike understanding of it, of the issues. And then on top of this, yard work that he just screws up, like his death lawn chairs that he made out of pallets. Oh boy. So like it feels like Nikki must be the primary breadwinner, and on top of this is also maintaining the household. It's just, I know people that have had these one-sided relationships from my time in the military and even my time as an engineer, and these relationships don't end up lasting just because a lot of resentment forms. I'm completely dependent on my wife 100%. She maintains the household. Well, I'm on the road like 90% of the time. She maintains the household. She controls all of our funds because I just simply am too busy with work and I travel too much. So what do you think I do whenever I'm home? I try to do everything I can. I try to clean up. One of the first things I always do is I grab the boy and me and him get the hell out of the house and we go up on the mountainside for like 2 days. Get mom a vacation. And then I'm back and it's like I try to cook every single meal. I try to do every single load of laundry. I try to do everything I can for my wife, mainly because 90% of the time she's doing it herself. And it's to show her how much I love and respect her and how much I need her and how much I'm solely dependent on her. Like just how much I appreciate her, you know what I mean? And I don't know, it's just maybe Pat does more stuff around the house. He just seems like one of those fellas that needs validation to such an extent that I have a hard time believing that he'd be able to help himself from broadcasting this to the world constantly. But I don't know. I gotta lay down because right now the computer screen is spinning. Y'all take care of each other. The weather's getting hot. If you have elderly family members, for a lot of older folks, especially when they're on the tight budget, whether they're on like Social Security or disability, when weather gets hot like this, electric bills go up, and they could be in a situation where they have a choice between paying for food and medicine or paying for air conditioning. This is where a lot of heat deaths climb up among the elderly. So if you can, check up on your neighbors, check up on your families, because right now in some parts of the United States, it's hell on earth with both the heat and the air quality. But y'all take care. Ciao.